The dog froze at the edge of the flooded basement, then slowly stepped back, like it had just seen something move under the water. Cold water sloshed against Caleb's boots as he steadied himself on the rotting stair rail. The beam of his flashlight trembled, catching a ripple that shouldn't have been there. Too sharp, too deliberate. Behind him, the dog let out a low, warning growl, and then the water shifted again. What do you think is down there? The notice was still taped to the door when Caleb Walker came back for the last time. It had curled at the edges from the rain, the ink slightly blurred, but the words were still clear enough. Foreclosure. Vacate immediately. He didn't read past that. He didn't need to. He'd seen enough paperwork like it. Orders, reports, names crossed out. He stood there for a moment on the cracked porch, keys in his hand, listening. No rotor wash, no distant radio chatter, just wind pushing through the empty street and a loose gutter tapping somewhere above him. Caleb turned the key, stepped inside, and didn't bother turning on the lights. The place was already hollowed out. Couch gone. Cabinets bare. The only thing left was the smell. Old coffee, dust, and something colder underneath it. Like a place that had already decided it didn't belong to anyone anymore. He moved through the rooms without hesitation, the way he used to clear buildings overseas. Corners first, sightlines. Always checking what couldn't be seen at first glance. Old habits didn't fade. They just got quieter. The bedroom was empty except for a duffel bag on the floor. He picked it up, slung it over his shoulder, and paused just once in the doorway. There had been a time when this room held more than just a bed. He shut the door behind him without looking back. 3 hours later, the road had narrowed to 2 lanes, then 1, then something that barely deserved the name. Pine trees crowded in on both sides, tall and indifferent, their shadows stretching long across the gravel. Idaho. Caleb adjusted his grip on the steering wheel. The truck rattled over a patch of uneven road, suspension groaning. He didn't slow down. The address sat folded on the passenger seat. He didn't need to check it again. He'd memorized it before he even left town. A farm. Old. Remote. Left to him by a man who hadn't spoken much in life and said even less when it counted. Sergeant First Class Daniel Reeves. They'd served together in Helmand Province. Same unit. Same patrols. Reeves had been the kind of man who never asked questions he didn't need answered. The kind who watched your back without making a show of it. The kind who didn't come home. Caleb hadn't seen the farm back then. Hadn't known it existed. Just a line in a will, passed through a lawyer who barely knew how to pronounce his name. You're the only one he listed. That had been it. No explanation. No message. Just land. Caleb drove another mile before the fuel gauge dipped lower than he liked. He spotted the gas station just off the road. Faded sign, flickering light. The kind of place people stopped at because there was nowhere else to go. He pulled in, killed the engine, and sat for a second. Silence again. Too quiet. He stepped out, boots hitting the gravel, and headed toward the pump. The smell of gasoline mixed with something sharper. Rust, maybe, or wet metal. That's when he saw it. A dog. Chained to one of the steel posts near the edge of the lot. Not a leash. A cable. The kind used for towing. German Shepherd. Too thin. Ribs visible under a coat that should have been thicker. One ear nicked. A faint scar running along the shoulder, half hidden under fur that had started to grow back uneven. The dog didn't bark, didn't move either, just watched him. Caleb stopped a few feet away. His body went still without him thinking about it, weight shifting slightly, ready without looking ready. Same stance he'd taken 100 times before approaching something that might turn fast. "Hey," he said, voice low. The dog's ears flicked. No growl, no retreat. Just those eyes, steady, tracking him like he already knew how this went. Caleb crouched slowly, keeping his hands where the dog could see them. "You bite?" No answer. Just a blink. From inside the station, a man's voice called out, "Wouldn't get too close if I were you." Caleb glanced over his shoulder. The clerk leaned in the doorway, wiping his hands on a rag. "Been there a while," the man said. "Someone tied him up, never came back." "How long?" The man shrugged. "Couple weeks, maybe more." Caleb looked back at the dog. It hadn't taken its eyes off him. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folding knife, and flipped it open. The cable was rusted near the latch. One good cut wouldn't do it. He adjusted the blade, worked it into the weak point, and pressed. Metal snapped with a dull, tired sound. The dog didn't move right away. It stood slowly, like something old inside it needed time to catch up. Its legs held, barely. It took one step forward, then another. Stopped right in front of Caleb. Close enough that he could see the flecks of amber in its eyes. Caleb held out his hand. The dog didn't sniff it. Just stood there, steady, like it had already made its decision. "All right," Caleb muttered. He stood, turned toward the truck, and walked without looking back. He heard it a second later. Pause on gravel, measured, controlled, following. The truck door creaked open. Caleb climbed in, set the duffel down, and glanced sideways. The dog stood by the passenger side, waiting. "Up to you," Caleb said. The dog jumped. Not clean. Its back legs slipped on the edge, claws scraping metal. Caleb reached over, grabbed under its chest, and pulled it the rest of the way in. Too light. He shut the door. The dog settled into the seat, breathing steady, eyes forward, like it belonged there. Caleb started the engine. Neither of them looked back at the station. As the truck rolled onto the road again, the trees closed in tighter, shadows stretching longer across the dirt. Two figures moving into a place no one else wanted. Neither of them speaking. Neither of them alone anymore. And somewhere ahead, past the bend in the road and the rise of the hills, something waited. Buried. The road gave out before the map did. Caleb felt it in the steering wheel first. The subtle shift from packed dirt to something looser, softer. The truck slowed without him touching the brake. Pine needles thickened across the path, swallowing the tire tracks that might have led somewhere once. "Guess this is it," he muttered. The dog, still unnamed in his mind, though it had settled into the passenger seat like it had always been there, didn't react, just watched ahead. The trees broke without warning. The land opened into a clearing that felt too quiet for its size. No wind across the grass, no birds cutting through the air, just stillness. And in the middle of it, the house. It leaned. Not enough to collapse, but enough to make you notice. The front porch sagged on the right side. One of the beams splintered and patched with something that hadn't held. Half the roof was dark with old water damage, shingles curling upward like dead skin. Caleb killed the engine. Silence pressed in. He didn't move right away. His eyes scanned the perimeter first. Tree line, open ground, the broken fence off to the west. No fresh tracks, no vehicles, no movement. Clear. He stepped out. Boots hit the ground, sinking just slightly into damp soil. The smell hit him next, Wet wood, old rot, and something metallic underneath it. Not sharp, just there. The dog climbed out more slowly this time. Its paws touched the dirt, and for a second, its posture changed. Tail lifted, ears forward. Alert. Caleb noticed. "Yeah," he said under his breath. "You feel it too." The dog didn't look at him. It was focused on the house. They moved together, keeping distance between them without thinking about it. Caleb approached the front steps at an angle, not straight on. Habit. Always offset your approach. The first step creaked when he tested it with his weight. He shifted slightly, redistributed pressure, then stepped up fully. The wood groaned but held. The front door was already open. Not wide, just enough to show darkness beyond. Caleb stopped. Something about that bothered him more than the rest. He pushed the door with 2 fingers. It swung inward without resistance. The smell inside was worse. Moisture, mold, something stagnant. He didn't step in right away. He leaned slightly, just enough to catch a view of the interior. Empty. No furniture. No movement. But the floorboards, those caught his attention. Warped. Not just from time, from water. He stepped inside. The dog followed, but only a few paces. Then it stopped. Caleb moved through the front room slowly, boots placing carefully between the worst of the warped boards. Every sound echoed too loud in the hollow space. He paused near the center of the room. Listened. There it was. Faint. A drip. Then another. Somewhere below. His eyes shifted left. A narrow hallway. At the end of it, a door. Half open. The dog hadn't moved. It stood just inside the doorway, body rigid now, head slightly lowered. Watching. Caleb's breathing slowed. He adjusted his stance without thinking, weight balanced, shoulders loose. "All right," he whispered. He moved down the hallway. Each step measured. The drip grew louder, closer. He reached the door and pushed it open the rest of the way. Cold air rose up immediately. Not the kind that comes from outside. This was different. Damp. Heavy. The beam of his flashlight cut through the dark. Stone steps. Leading down. Water. Black still, filling the basement up to the 3rd step. Caleb didn't speak. He just stood there watching the surface. It didn't move. No ripples, no current. Too still. Behind him, the dog let out a low sound. Not a bark. A warning. Caleb glanced back. The dog hadn't come closer. It was planted where it stood, eyes locked on the darkness below. "Yeah," Caleb said quietly. His gaze returned to the water. Something about it felt wrong. Not just the flooding, not just the neglect. There was structure down there. He could see it in the way the light bounced back. Lines too straight, edges too clean. Not just dirt and concrete. Something else. A floor, maybe, or something covering it. A voice cut through the silence. "You planning on going down there?" Caleb turned fast. Too fast. His body reacted before his mind caught up, shoulders tightening, hand shifting toward where a weapon used to sit. A man stood in the doorway behind him. Late 50s, heavy jacket, weathered face, didn't look surprised. "Easy," the man said. "Didn't mean to sneak up on you." Caleb didn't answer right away. He let the silence stretch. Then, Didn't hear your truck. Walked, the man said. Name's Wade. Place next ridge over. Caleb studied him. No visible threat. Hands open. Stance relaxed. Still. Caleb. Wade nodded once. His eyes moved past Caleb, toward the basement. Water's been rising for years, he said. Spring runoff changed direction. Ground shifted. Happens out here. Caleb said nothing. Wade stepped a little closer, careful with his footing. County's been trying to condemn this place. Too unstable, not worth saving. His gaze shifted back to Caleb. You thinking about fixing it? Caleb looked at the water again, then at the warped boards, the sagging beams, then back down into the darkness. I'll take a look, he said. Wade let out a short breath that might have been a laugh. Not much to see, he said. Just rot and bad luck. Caleb didn't respond. Behind him, the dog finally moved. One step forward, then stopped again. Still watching the basement. Wade glanced at it. That yours? Caleb nodded. Picked a strange place to follow you to, Wade said. Caleb's eyes stayed on the water. Maybe, he said. Another drip echoed from below. Slow, steady, like something counting time. Caleb turned off the flashlight. Darkness swallowed the stairwell instantly. But even without the light, he could feel it. Something under that water didn't belong. And it wasn't done waiting. Caleb didn't sleep inside the house that night. He dragged an old tarp from the back of the truck, laid it across the bed of the pickup, and climbed in with his duffel under his head. The sky stretched wide above him, clear and cold, stars cutting sharp through the darkness. The dog stayed close. Curled near the tailgate at first, then shifting once before settling with its back pressed lightly against Caleb's boots. Not touching too much. Just enough. Caleb closed his eyes. It didn't last. A sound cracked through the quiet. Metal on metal. Sharp. Close. His eyes snapped open. He was already moving before the thought formed, rolling off the tarp, hand reaching for something that wasn't there anymore. His breathing tightened, body low, scanning. Contact. He froze beside the truck, listening. Nothing. The wind had picked up just enough to move the loose siding on the house. It tapped once. Then again. Caleb stayed still for a long moment. Counting. Waiting for the second sound. The one that never came by accident. It didn't. He straightened slowly, exhaling through his nose. Yeah, he muttered. Just wind. But his eyes didn't believe it. Behind him, the dog hadn't moved. It stood facing the house. Not barking, not pacing, watching. Caleb followed its line of sight. The front door, still open. Dark inside. He walked toward it, slower this time, not cautious, controlled. The dog moved with him, step for step, until they reached the threshold. Then it stopped again. Right there. Wouldn't go farther. Caleb glanced down. You coming? The dog didn't respond. Its ears tilted forward slightly, body stiff, focused. On the hallway. On the basement door. Caleb pushed inside alone. The air felt colder than it should have. Not just night air settling in. This was deeper, damp, heavy. He didn't turn on a light, just let his eyes adjust, letting shapes come into place the way they always had. Living room, empty. Hallway. Left. Door at the end. Open. The drip echoed again. Slower now. Measured. Caleb walked toward it. Behind him, the dog let out that same low sound, quiet, almost swallowed before it could fully form. A warning. He paused, then kept moving. At the end of the hallway, he stopped in the doorway. The darkness below seemed thicker at night. The beam from his flashlight cut down the steps again, catching the same black surface. Still, reflective, unnatural. He crouched slightly, lowering the light closer to the water. Watched. Waited. Nothing moved. But something about the reflection shifted when he changed the angle. Not a ripple. A shape. Flat. Too even. Caleb narrowed his eyes. Adjusted again. There. Beneath the surface, just barely visible, a straight edge. Not rock. Not dirt. Man-made. He leaned forward a fraction more. Behind him, claws scraped against wood. The dog had moved. One step, then another, closer than before, but still not crossing the threshold. Caleb didn't look back. "You see it too?" he said quietly. The dog's breathing changed. Faster. Caleb held the light steady. The shape didn't disappear. If anything, it became clearer the longer he looked. A surface. A floor, or something covering one. His jaw tightened. He straightened slowly, turning the flashlight off. Darkness swallowed the stairwell again. He stood there for a moment longer, letting the silence settle back in. Then he stepped away from the door. The dog backed up immediately, creating space without needing to be told. Caleb walked past it, out into the front room. "Not natural," he said under his breath. The dog followed him now. Close. Closer than before. Outside, the air felt different. Cleaner. But the feeling didn't leave. Caleb sat on the porch steps, elbows resting on his knees, staring out at the tree line. The dog sat beside him, not looking at the trees, looking back at the door. Caleb noticed. "Yeah," he said again. He leaned back slightly, eyes drifting to the ground, replaying what he'd seen. Angles, edges, patterns. He didn't rush it, didn't jump to conclusions, just stored it. The way he always had. Observe, wait, confirm. After a while, he stood up, walked back to the truck, opened the glove compartment. Empty. No cash. He checked his wallet. A few bills. Not enough. He closed it slowly, looked back at the house, then at the dog. "You're not leaving that door alone," he said. The dog didn't react. Didn't have to. Caleb nodded once. "All right." He grabbed his keys. At the edge of the clearing, the first light of dawn started to push through the trees. Caleb climbed into the truck. The dog jumped in before he even started the engine. This time, cleaner, stronger. As the engine turned over, Caleb glanced once more at the house, at the open door, at the place where the ground dipped just slightly beneath it. Then he shifted into gear. Gravel crunched under the tires as he pulled away. Not leaving, just going to get what he needed. Because whatever was under that water, it wasn't staying there. Not anymore. And neither was he. The hardware store sat at the edge of a town that looked like it had been holding its breath for 20 years. Caleb parked beside a rusted pickup and cut the engine. The dog stayed in the passenger seat this time, watching the street through the windshield, ears twitching at every passing sound. "Stay," Caleb said. The dog didn't move. Inside, the store smelled like oil and sawdust. Shelves stacked uneven, labels faded. A bell rang when he stepped in, sharp and hollow. The man behind the counter looked up, eyes scanning Caleb once, then twice. "You passing through?" he asked. "No," Caleb said. "Need a pump." The man leaned back slightly. "For what?" "Basement." A pause. The man's mouth tightened just enough to show he understood. "Barker Ridge?" he asked. Caleb didn't answer. Didn't need to. The man nodded once, slow. "Thought that place was done," he said. "County's been trying to shut it down for years." Caleb's gaze stayed steady. "Pump," he repeated. The man sighed and stepped out from behind the counter. He walked Caleb through the aisle without another word, stopping in front of a stack of old equipment. He said. "Still runs." Caleb crouched, running his hand along the casing. Cold metal, solid. He checked the intake, the seals, the cord. Functional. "How much?" $140. Caleb pulled out his wallet. Counted. Not enough. He paused, then set the money down anyway. "All I've got," he said. The man looked at the bills, then at Caleb, then back at the pump. He exhaled slowly. "Take it," he said, "and the hose." Caleb didn't thank him. He just nodded once. By the time he got back, the light had shifted. Late afternoon, shadows stretching long across the clearing. The house looked worse in daylight, more exposed, more honest. The dog jumped out before the truck fully stopped this time, landing clean and steady. It moved toward the porch, then stopped again. Same spot. Same line. Watching the door, Caleb hauled the pump out of the truck bed, muscles tightening with the weight. He didn't rush, didn't waste movement. He ran the extension from the truck battery, checked the connections twice. No mistakes. Not here. Inside, the air hadn't changed. Still damp, still heavy. The hallway felt narrower now. The basement door waited at the end of it. Caleb stepped through without hesitation. The dog followed, closer than before. But when they reached the door, it stopped again. Caleb noticed, didn't push it. He set the pump at the top of the steps, then lowered it carefully, rope sliding through his hands until the machine touched the water with a dull splash. The surface broke. Ripples spread outward, slow and deliberate. Caleb watched them, counted, then flipped the switch. The pump coughed once, twice, then roared to life. The sound filled the house instantly, low, mechanical, steady. Water surged through the hose, thick and dark, spilling out the window he'd cracked open earlier. Caleb stepped back, watching the flow. Not fast, but moving. That was enough. Behind him, the dog shifted its weight, closer. The sound of the pump didn't seem to bother it, but something else did. Its head tilted slightly, listening. Caleb followed the instinct. He shut his eyes for a second, and the sound changed. The steady hum of the pump twisted, rotor blades, chopping air. Voices crackling through a headset. Taking fire. Taking fire. His eyes snapped open. The hallway was still there. The pump still running. But his chest tightened, breath shortening for just a second too long. He turned his head slightly, scanning without thinking. Corners, doorways, entry points, Nothing moved. The dog pressed against his leg, firm, grounding. Caleb exhaled slowly. The sound settled back into what it was. Just a machine. Just water. He didn't step away, didn't shut it off. He stayed. Watched. Time passed without shape. Minutes. Maybe more. The water level shifted. Barely. But it shifted. Caleb noticed. Logged it. Progress. Behind him, boots scraped against wood. Wade. "You actually did it," he said, voice carrying over the noise. Caleb didn't turn. "Yeah." Wade stepped closer, peering down the stairs. "Won't make a dent," he said. "Not with that." Caleb said nothing. The pump kept running. Wade watched for a moment longer, then shook his head. "You're burning your last dollars on a place that's already gone." Caleb reached down, adjusting the hose slightly, making sure it stayed clear. "Maybe," he said. Wade studied him, then looked at the dog, still standing guard at the door, still watching the water. "Or maybe," Wade said quietly, "you know something I don't." Caleb didn't answer. The pump kept pulling. Water kept moving. Slow, relentless, just like him. Wade turned and walked back toward the front door. "Battery won't last the night," he called over his shoulder. "When it dies, that thing stops." Caleb glanced at the truck through the window. He knew. Already calculated it. Hours. Maybe less. He looked back down at the water. At the surface shifting inch by inch, then at the faint line beneath it. Still there. Still waiting. Caleb adjusted his stance. Didn't move. Didn't leave. If the battery died, he'd find another way. Because he'd already made the only decision that mattered. He wasn't walking away. Not this time. The battery died just before midnight. Caleb heard it in the pitch of the pump first, the steady hum thinning, dragging, then choking off into silence. The house swallowed the sound whole. For a moment, there was nothing. No drip. No wind. Just the kind of quiet that made your ears strain for something that wasn't there. Caleb didn't move right away. He stood at the top of the basement stairs, eyes fixed on the black surface below. The water had dropped. Barely. Maybe an inch. Maybe less. But it had moved. That was enough. Behind him, the dog shifted. Closer now. No hesitation in its step this time. It stopped just short of the doorway again, but the distance between them had shrunk. Caleb turned. "You did your part," he said quietly. The dog's tail moved once. Slow. Caleb stepped past it, out into the cold night air. The truck sat dark and dead, hood still warm from the strain. He popped it open, checked the terminals by feel. Nothing wrong. Just drained. He closed it again, looked toward the road, then toward Wade's place somewhere past the trees. He made the decision without thinking about it. Wade didn't seem surprised when Caleb knocked. The porch light flicked on, and the door opened before the second knock landed. "Figured you'd be back," Wade said. Caleb didn't waste time. "Need power." Wade leaned against the frame, studying him. "Battery died?" "Yeah." Wade nodded once, then stepped aside. "Got a generator," he said. "Old, but it runs." Caleb followed him around the side of the house, boots crunching over gravel and frost. The generator sat under a tarp, heavy, worn, but intact. Wade pulled it free. "You know how to run one of these?" he asked. Caleb grabbed the handle. "I'll manage." Wade watched him for a second longer. Then, without another word, he picked up a second hose and a coil of cable. "Let's not do this halfway," he said. By the time they got back, the sky was just starting to lighten. A thin gray edge cutting through the trees. The dog was waiting at the edge of the clearing. Not by the house, by the road. Watching. It turned as the truck rolled in, then trotted back toward the porch, checking the perimeter before settling again near the doorway. Caleb noticed. Didn't comment. They set the generator outside the house, ran the cable through the window, and lowered the pump back into place. When it kicked on this time, the sound was deeper, stronger. The hose jerked once as water surged through it, thick and brown, spilling out into the grass. Wade crossed his arms, watching the flow. "That's better," he said. Caleb nodded once. Didn't take his eyes off the water. The first day passed slow, measured. The water dropped another inch, maybe 2. Caleb didn't track time by the clock. He tracked it by the steps. Third step, still covered. Second step, still hidden. He adjusted the hose twice, cleared debris from the intake once, never left the doorway for long. The dog stayed with him, not wandering, not resting far, always within reach. At one point, the cable slipped loose from the window frame. The hose shifted, pressure building in the wrong direction. Before Caleb could move, the dog lunged forward, teeth catching the fabric wrap of the hose, dragging it back into place before it could snap free. Caleb froze for half a second, then moved. Secured it properly this time. He glanced at the dog. "You've done this before?" he muttered. The dog didn't respond, just sat back down, watching the water again. Night came, then morning, then night again. The second day, the smell changed, less stagnant, more earth. The third day, the water line reached the third step. Barely, but visible. Caleb crouched lower, flashlight cutting through the dim light of the room. The surface still looked wrong, too smooth, too flat. He didn't touch it, didn't rush. Behind him, Wade stood in the doorway, sipping from a thermos. "You're getting somewhere," he said. Caleb didn't answer. Wade watched a little longer, then set the thermos down beside the wall. "Brought fuel," he added. "Figure you're not leaving anytime soon." Caleb glanced at him. A small nod. Nothing more. On the fourth day, the generator sputtered. Not dead, just struggling. Caleb moved fast this time, cutting power, checking the line, clearing the intake again. The dog pressed against his leg, steady, grounding. The sound of the engine twisting into something else flickered again. Rotor blades. Distant. "Hold your position." Caleb blinked, shook it off. Focused. The machine steadied. The sound returned to what it was. Just a generator. Just water. By the fifth day, the steps were clear. All 3. Stone, clean, too clean. Caleb stood at the edge, looking down. The water had dropped enough now that the shape beneath it was unmistakable. Flat surface, man-made. Extending beyond the edges of the foundation. The dog moved forward, closer than it ever had. One paw touching the first step, then stopping. Ears forward. Body tense. Caleb followed its gaze. The surface below. Still. Waiting. The air rising from it felt different now. Cooler. Drier. Not like flooded earth, like something sealed. Caleb didn't step down. Not yet. He turned the flashlight off. Let the silence settle in around them. 5 days. 5 nights. Mud. Noise. Stillness. And now, something real, something buried, and almost ready to come up. Caleb stepped down onto the first stone stair. The surface was slick but solid. No give, no crumble. He tested it with his weight before committing, just like he used to stepping into uncertain ground overseas. The dog stayed behind him. One paw resting on the top step now, closer than ever, but still not fully following. Caleb noticed. "Hold," he said quietly. The dog didn't move. Good. Caleb lowered himself to the second step. The air changed immediately. Cooler, cleaner. Not the heavy rot from before. This felt contained, sealed, like the space below had been cut off from everything above it for a long time. He angled the flashlight downward. The water had pulled back enough to reveal the edge of the surface beneath. Stone. Not poured concrete. Not rough. Cut. Clean lines. Straight edges. Fitted. Caleb's jaw tightened slightly. "That's not farm work," he muttered. He stepped onto the third stair, the last one above water. From here, he could see it clearly. A floor, flat, even, stretching beyond the narrow footprint of the basement walls. And at the far end, a break. A line where the surface dropped away into darkness. Caleb didn't move for a second. He just watched, measured, counted. No sound from below. No shift in the water. No movement. Behind him, claws clicked once against stone. The dog had stepped down, just one level, closer. Caleb didn't turn. "Easy," he said. The dog's breathing was steady, focused, not afraid, alert. Caleb reached down, picked up a piece of broken wood from the stair edge, and tossed it forward into the water. It landed with a soft splash. Ripples spread. Slow. No reaction. He waited. Nothing. "All right," he said under his breath. He climbed back up. Step by step. Deliberate. The dog moved aside just enough to let him pass, then followed him out into the hallway. Caleb didn't stop there. He grabbed a longer beam from the collapsed porch outside, weathered but strong enough, and brought it back in. Wade was standing near the doorway again, watching. "You going fishing now?" Wade asked. Caleb didn't answer. He moved past him, back to the stairs, lowered the beam into the water. Careful. Feeling. The wood touched the surface below with a dull, solid knock. Not mud, not debris. Stone. He pushed further. The beam slid forward, then dropped. A sudden shift. A hollow space beyond the edge. Caleb stopped, pulled the beam back, then pushed again, slower this time. Same result. Solid, then empty. A ledge. A drop-off. Wade stepped closer now, peering down. "Well, I'll be damned," he said quietly. Caleb kept testing, mapping it out in his head. Surface area, depth, distance. This wasn't just a flooded basement. It was something built, something planned. Behind him, the dog let out a low growl, not loud, but sharp. Caleb froze. That wasn't random. He turned his head slightly. The dog wasn't looking at the water. It was looking above, at the ceiling. Caleb followed its gaze. A faint crack ran along one of the support beams overhead. Old, but widened. Water damage had eaten into the wood. Weight above shifting. "Step back," Caleb said. Wade frowned. "What?" The dog barked once. Loud, sharp, then lunged forward, grabbing Caleb's sleeve and pulling. Hard. Caleb didn't fight it. He moved. Fast. 2 steps back into the hallway. Wade hesitated for half a second too long, then followed. The sound came next. A heavy crack. Then a section of the ceiling gave way, crashing down onto the stairs where Caleb had been standing seconds before. Wood splintered. Dust filled the air. Silence followed. Thick. Wade stared at the debris, breathing heavier now. "Well, hell," he muttered. Caleb didn't respond. He was looking at the dog. The dog released his sleeve slowly, stepped back, sat, like nothing had happened. Caleb crouched slightly, meeting its eyes. "Yeah," he said quietly. "You saw it first." He stood up again, turning back toward the broken stairwell. The collapse hadn't reached the lower level, just the top section. The path was still there, still open. Wade shook his head slowly. "You're standing on something nobody's supposed to find," he said. Caleb looked at the dark gap beyond the stone floor, at the drop where the beam had slipped, at the air rising from below. Cool. Dry. Waiting. "Yeah," Caleb said. The dog moved to his side, closer than ever now. No hesitation left. Caleb adjusted his grip on the beam. Eyes steady. "Let's see how deep this goes." Caleb waited until the dust settled, not rushing in, not trusting the silence. He watched the broken stairwell, tracking the way the debris had fallen, how the weight shifted, where the weak points were now. Same process, different place. Nothing changed, just the setting. "Give it a minute," he said. Wade nodded, stepping back toward the front room, coughing once as the dust thinned out. The dog didn't move. It stayed close to Caleb now, shoulder brushing his leg, eyes fixed on the opening below like it had been waiting for this moment since the first step inside the house. Caleb crouched, clearing a path through the broken boards. He tested each piece before moving it aside, careful not to send anything else down the stairwell. When the way was clear enough, he stepped back down. Slow, controlled. The beam in his hand extended forward, checking each surface before his weight followed. The stone floor held. The drop-off at the far end was closer now, fully exposed as the last of the standing water drained into it. A second stairway. Narrower. Cut directly into the rock beneath the house. Caleb stopped at the edge. He angled the flashlight downward. The beam slid along the steps, catching rough stone walls this time, not finished like the level above. These were older. Carved, functional. 20 feet down, maybe more. The light didn't reach the bottom. Behind him, the dog stepped onto the stone floor. No hesitation now. It moved up beside him, peering into the dark. Ears forward, body still, waiting. Caleb nodded once. "Stay close." He started down. One step, then another. Each foot placed carefully, testing for loose edges. The air grew cooler with every step, the dampness fading behind them. Halfway down, the sound changed. Not water, not wind. A hollow quiet, the kind that comes from enclosed space. Caleb stopped, listened. Nothing moved. He continued. At the bottom, the stairway opened into something that didn't belong under a collapsing farmhouse. The ceiling arched overhead, low but deliberate. Stone carved into a rough curve. The floor was level, dry, and swept clean of debris, not abandoned, preserved. Caleb's flashlight moved slowly across the room. Metal. Crates stacked along one wall, military green, edges worn but intact. A folding table near the center, covered in dust but not decay. Maps pinned to a board behind it. Real maps. Topographic. Marked. Wade's voice echoed faintly from above. "You seeing this?" Caleb didn't answer. He stepped forward. The dog moved ahead of him this time. 2 paces, then stopped. Its body went rigid. Low growl. Caleb froze instantly. Eyes scanning. "Talk to me," he murmured. The dog shifted slightly to the left, positioning itself between Caleb and a section of the ceiling. Caleb followed its gaze. A crack. Fresh. Running along a seam in the stone above. He didn't hesitate. "Back," he said. The dog moved with him, both of them stepping away from the spot. 2 seconds later, the stone gave. A chunk broke loose, slamming into the ground where they had just stood. Dust burst outward. Silence followed again. Wade's footsteps thundered halfway down the stairs before stopping. "You all right?" Caleb looked at the fallen rock, then at the dog. "Yeah," he said. "We're good." The dog eased its stance but didn't relax completely. Still watching, still reading the room. Caleb moved deeper now, stepping around the impact point. He knelt beside one of the crates, ran his fingers across the lid. Stamped letters. Faded. He wiped the dust away. Coordinates. Serial numbers. Military issue. Old but not forgotten. He pried the lid open. Inside, documents. Sealed bags, equipment wrapped tight. Not random storage. Organized. Intentional. Caleb's breathing slowed. His flashlight moved to the map board. Pinned routes. Marked zones. A grid he recognized without wanting to. O lines. Extraction points. One label caught his eye. Helmand Province. Caleb stood still. The room shifted. Just for a second. Heat. Dust. Radio static. "Walker, move! Move!" He blinked hard. The stone walls came back. The silence. The dog pressed against his leg again, grounding. He exhaled slowly. "Yeah," he muttered. "I see it." He turned back to the crates. This wasn't just storage. This was a record. A buried one. Above him, Wade stepped down one level further, peering into the room. "What the hell is this place?" he asked. Caleb didn't look up. His eyes stayed on the map. On the markings. On the part of his past that should have stayed buried. "Something that wasn't meant to be found," he said. The dog shifted closer. Closer than ever now. No space left between them. Because down here, it wasn't just a secret. It was something that had been waiting for him. Specifically. Caleb didn't move for a long time. The map board stayed in front of him, the flashlight beam fixed on the faded lines and hand-marked symbols. He didn't need to read the labels anymore. His body already knew what he was looking at. Grid overlays, patrol routes, LZ marks scratched in with a pencil that had pressed too hard. Someone had mapped this by memory, or by survival. Behind him, Wade stepped fully into the room now, boots echoing faintly on the stone. This isn't normal, Wade said, voice lower than before. You seein' what I'm seein'? Caleb didn't answer. He moved to the table instead. Slow, controlled, the same way he approached anything that could turn wrong without warning. The surface was coated in a thin layer of dust, but not thick enough to suggest years of neglect. This place hadn't been forgotten. It had been sealed. He brushed a section clear with his hand. Paper. Stacked, bound, some sealed in plastic. He picked one up. The plastic crinkled under his grip, tight, deliberate sealing, not casual storage. He opened it carefully. Inside, reports, typed, printed, marked, military format, but incomplete. Redacted in places where there should have been names, where there should have been answers. Caleb's eyes moved faster now, scanning the structure before the content. Date, unit, operation code. His breath slowed, then stopped. He recognized the code, not from paperwork, from memory. The room shifted again, heat pressing in, sand in the air. The sound of boots hitting packed dirt too fast. Walker, left side, gunfire cracked. Short bursts, controlled. Caleb's fingers tightened on the paper. He blinked. Hard. The bunker came back. Stone walls, cool air. Silence. The dog pressed into his leg again. Firm. Unmoving. Caleb exhaled through his nose. Yeah, he murmured. I'm here. He set the paper down, didn't drop it. Placed it. Deliberate. He moved to the crates again, opened another. Inside. Equipment. Old but maintained. A radio unit wrapped tight. Field tools, compact. Stored like someone expected to come back for them. Or wanted someone else to. Wade stepped closer, crouching beside another crate. Who builds something like this under a farmhouse? He asked. Caleb didn't answer. He already knew the type of man who would. He just didn't want to say it out loud. The dog moved ahead of him now, deeper into the room. Its gait was slower, more careful. It sniffed once near the edge of the far wall, then jerked back suddenly. A sharp whine cut through the silence. Caleb was there in 2 steps. Easy. The dog lifted its front paw slightly. A thin line of red traced across it. Metal. Rust. A jagged edge from a broken bracket near the wall. Caleb dropped to one knee instantly. Hold still. His voice changed. Quieter, sharper, focused. He pulled a cloth from his pocket, wrapped it tight around the paw, fingers moving with practiced precision. No hesitation, no wasted motion. Pressure. Secure. Check. The dog didn't pull away, didn't fight him, just watched him. Breathing steady. Caleb tightened the wrap, then leaned back slightly, eyes scanning the wound. Not deep. Clean enough. Seen worse, he muttered. The dog lowered its paw slowly, testing it, then leaned into him again. Caleb stayed there for a second longer than he needed to, then stood. Wade watched from across the room. You've done that before, he said. Caleb didn't respond. His eyes had already moved back to the table, to the documents, to the part of his life that had never closed properly. He picked up another file. This one thinner, marked differently. Handwritten notes along the margin. Not official. Personal. The handwriting was familiar. Not from the army. From somewhere else. Caleb flipped it open. The first page held a single line. Coordinates, followed by a name, not a location, not a unit. A person. Caleb's jaw tightened. He turned the page. The notes shifted, less structured now. Observations, fragments, pieces of something someone hadn't been allowed to say out loud. The words didn't explain everything, but they pointed toward something buried deeper than this room. Wade shifted uneasily behind him. "You figuring something out?" he asked. Caleb didn't look up. "Yeah," he said quietly. He closed the file. Carefully. Set it back on the table. The dog moved closer again, pressing against his side, injured paw barely touching the ground. Still standing. Still holding. Caleb looked down at it for a second, then back at the bunker. This wasn't about money. Not yet. Maybe not ever. This was something else. Something that had been cut out. Hidden. Left behind for someone who could read it the right way. And now, he was standing in the middle of it. Not by accident. Never by accident. Caleb didn't touch the files again. He closed the crate, one hand resting on the lid a second longer than necessary, like sealing something back in place. "Pack it up for now," he said. Wade frowned. "That's it? You're just leaving it?" "For now." Caleb's voice stayed even, measured. He wasn't done down here, but he wasn't staying blind either. He turned toward the stairs. The dog moved first. Even with the wrapped paw, it climbed steady, keeping ahead just enough to check each step before Caleb took it. No hesitation, no sound beyond the soft scrape of claws on stone. By the time they reached the top, the light outside had shifted again. Late afternoon, shadows stretching long across the clearing. Caleb stepped out onto the porch and stopped. Something had changed. The air felt different, not colder, tighter. He didn't move forward, didn't speak, just listened. The dog froze beside him, ears up, body angled slightly toward the tree line. Caleb followed that angle. There. Faint. A sound that didn't belong. Engine. Low. Distant. He stepped off the porch without a word, moving along the side of the house instead of straight out into the open. The dog stayed tight at his leg now, silent. They reached the edge of the structure where the ground dipped slightly. Better angle. Better cover. Caleb crouched, scanning through the trees. A vehicle rolled slowly along the narrow road. Not local. Too clean. Too deliberate. It stopped just short of the clearing, engine idling. Caleb didn't move, didn't blink. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. Mid-40s, clean jacket, boots that hadn't seen real dirt yet. Not a neighbor, not a farmer. Another door opened. Second man. Same type. They didn't speak right away, just stood there, looking at the house, at the land. Assessing. Caleb's eyes tracked everything. Posture, distance, hands. No weapons visible. Didn't matter. This wasn't random. The dog shifted slightly, pressing closer to his leg. Caleb placed a hand lightly against its neck. Steady. Wait. The first man pulled something from his pocket. Paper. Folded. He glanced at it, then back at the house. The second man walked a few steps forward, boots crunching softly on gravel. Too confident. Too comfortable. They knew this place hurt, or thought they did. Caleb stayed low, shifting his position slightly to keep the house between them. Angle. Cover. Always keep cover. The dog moved with him without needing direction. Perfect alignment. They reached the back corner of the house. From here, Caleb had a clear line of sight through a broken section of siding. He watched. Listened. The men spoke now, voices low but carrying just enough. "Water line's still off," one said. "Doesn't matter," the other replied. "We can reroute again if we have to." Caleb's jaw tightened. Reroute. Again. The first man gestured toward the house. "Thought this place was supposed to be gone by now." "It will be," the second said. "Just a delay." They weren't guessing. They weren't speculating. They were talking like it was already theirs. Caleb shifted his weight slightly. The dog's head snapped up. Before Caleb heard it, footsteps, closer. One of them had moved off the path, coming around the side. Caleb reacted instantly. Hand on the dog's collar, pulling it back just enough as he stepped behind a fallen beam, flattening against the wall. The dog didn't resist, didn't make a sound. The man's boots appeared first. 2 feet away, then 3. He stopped. Right on the other side of the wall. Caleb slowed his breathing, counted. 1, 2. The man shifted, looked out toward the tree line instead, turned back, walked away. Caleb didn't move until the engine started again. The vehicle reversed slowly, then pulled away down the road. The sound faded. Gone. Only then did Caleb straighten. The dog stepped out from cover, scanning the clearing again. Clear. For now. Wade came out onto the porch, looking confused. "You see that?" he asked. Caleb nodded once. "Not locals," Wade said. "No. They didn't look like they were lost either." "No." Wade stepped down, glancing toward the road. "You think they know about what's under there?" Caleb looked back at the house, at the basement door, at the ground beneath it. "They know something," he said. The dog moved ahead of him, limping slightly, but still alert, still scanning. Caleb watched it for a second, then turned back toward the tree line. The men had come quiet. Careful. Too late to stop what had already been found, but not too late to take it. Caleb's eyes hardened slightly. "Next time," he said under his breath, "they won't just be looking." The dog let out a low, steady growl. Not loud, but certain. Caleb nodded once. "Yeah," he said. He wasn't alone in that thought. The clearing stayed quiet after the truck disappeared. Too quiet. Caleb didn't move right away. He stood at the edge of the house, eyes still fixed on the road long after the sound of the engine faded. His body held tension the way it used to after a patrol, when the contact had passed, but the feeling hadn't. The dog shifted beside him. Not restless. Focused. Waiting for the next move. Caleb finally turned back toward the house. "Inside," he said. The dog followed without hesitation. The bunker felt different now. Not safer. Not hidden. Just known. Caleb moved straight to the table this time. No hesitation. No pause to scan the room like before. He already understood the layout. The exits. The angles. Now he needed answers. He pulled the file back out. The thinner one. The one with the handwriting. The dog settled near the base of the stairs, positioning itself so it could see both Caleb and the entrance. Even with the injured paw, it held that spot like it had trained for it. Guarding. Caleb flipped the file open again. Coordinates. Names. Fragments. But this time he didn't skim. He read. Line by line. Slow, deliberate. The handwriting wasn't military, not official, but it wasn't careless either. Someone had written this knowing it might be the only record left. His eyes stopped on a line halfway down the page. A company name. Short, clean, professional. Not military, not government, private. Caleb felt something shift in his chest. Not sharp, just heavy. He turned the page. More notes. Mentions of land surveys. Water redirection. Acquisition timelines. The words weren't technical, but the intent was clear. Someone had mossed water on purpose, to weaken the land, to make it fail. Caleb's jaw tightened. He flipped again. The last page. A single note, written harder than the rest, pressed deep into the paper. Just a name. Initial first, then full last name. Caleb didn't breathe for a second. The room narrowed. Sound dropped out. Not like before. Not like the war. This was different. Quieter. He read it again. Didn't need to. He knew the name. His hand lowered slowly. The paper stayed in place, but his fingers no longer gripped it. He just stood there, looking at it. Behind him, the dog shifted slightly. Not alarmed, just aware. Caleb closed the file. Carefully. Set it back down on the table. He didn't say anything. Didn't react. Didn't throw it. Didn't break. He just stood there. Still. Wade's voice echoed faintly from above. You finding anything down there? Caleb didn't answer right away. He walked to the far wall instead. Ran his hand along the stone. Cold. Solid. Real. Something he could touch. Something that didn't move. Didn't change. Unlike everything else. The dog stood up slowly and moved closer, pressed against his side again. Grounding. Caleb exhaled. Long, controlled. Then he turned back toward the table. Picked the file up again. This time he didn't read it. He folded it once, slid it into his jacket. Wade appeared at the bottom of the stairs, looking uneasy. Something wrong? He asked. Caleb met his eyes. Yeah, he said. Wade waited. Caleb didn't elaborate, didn't explain. He just walked past him. Up the stairs. The dog followed immediately. No hesitation. Outside, the air hit colder now. Or maybe it just felt that way. Caleb stepped onto the porch and looked out over the clearing. The trees hadn't moved. The house hadn't changed. Everything looked the same. But it wasn't. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, stared at it. The screen stayed dark. No signal out here. Didn't matter. He wasn't going to call. Not yet. Behind him, Wade stepped onto the porch. You gonna tell me what's going on? He asked. Caleb didn't turn. No. Wade let out a breath. Those guys earlier, this connected to them? Caleb nodded once. Wade looked back toward the road. Then we got a problem. Caleb finally turned. Not angry. Not loud. Just certain. Yeah, he said. The dog moved to the edge of the porch, scanning the tree line again. Even with the bandaged paw, it stood steady. Ready. Caleb looked at it, then back at the land, at the house, at everything buried beneath it. He slipped the phone back into his pocket. His voice dropped, almost to himself. I should have seen it sooner. The dog's ears twitched. Caleb's gaze stayed forward. That name in the file, it wasn't just a connection. It was a line. From the past. From the life he'd lost. From someone he hadn't spoken to in years. And now it had followed him here. The thought didn't hit like a gunshot. It settled in slow. Heavy. Like something that had been walking behind him for years, quiet enough he never turned around. Until now. Caleb stood at the edge of the porch, watching the tree line without really seeing it. The mountains stretched out beyond, dark shapes against a pale sky, the wind moving through them in long, low breaths. Behind him, the house creaked, old wood shifting, water still dripping somewhere below. Nothing had changed, but everything had. The dog stayed close, not restless, not pacing, just there, waiting. Caleb reached into his jacket again, pulled the folded file halfway out, then stopped. He didn't open it, didn't need to. He already knew what was inside. Instead, he turned and walked back into the house. Wade followed a step behind, slower this time. Caleb, he said, if this is bigger than just land, you need to think about who else is going to come knocking. Caleb didn't answer. He moved through the hallway, down the stairs, back into the basement, then further, into the bunker. The air down there stayed cool. Still. Untouched by whatever mess was waiting outside. The dog hesitated for a second at the top of the lower stairs, just long enough to check Caleb's movement, then followed again, limping slightly, but refusing to fall behind. Caleb stepped into the room and stopped. Looked around. Not scanning this time. Seeing. The metal cases, the maps, the tools. Everything that had been buried. Everything someone had tried to erase. And everything that had survived anyway. Wade stayed near the entrance, uneasy. This stuff. This ain't just junk, he muttered. No, Caleb said. His voice was calm, flat, certain. He walked to one of the cases and opened it again. Inside, stacks of sealed containers. Not flashy, not obvious, but organized, deliberate. The kind of storage meant for long-term, for protection, for preservation. Caleb lifted one slightly. Heavy. More than it looked. He set it back down without opening it. He already understood enough. Money, assets, leverage, enough to change everything. Enough to fix everything. Enough to walk away from every debt, every mistake, every year that had led him here. Wade stepped closer, eyes narrowing. You thinking what I'm thinking? Caleb didn't look at him, no. Wade let out a short breath. Because I'm thinking. You just found a way out. Caleb finally turned, looked straight at him. Out of what? Wade frowned. All of it. This place, that mess upstairs, whatever trouble's coming. Caleb shook his head once. Slow. That's not what this is. He stepped past Wade, moving deeper into the room. The dog followed, then circled once before settling near the center, watching both men and the doorway at the same time. Always covering angles. Always thinking ahead. Caleb crouched near the work table, ran his fingers along the surface. Dust. Cold metal. Time. He exhaled slowly. I've seen this before, he said. Wade looked confused. Seen what? Caleb didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed on the table, not really seeing it. Seeing something else. Different ground, different air. Places like this, he said quietly. Stuff buried, hidden, protected. Wade waited. Caleb's jaw tightened slightly. Every time, someone thought it would fix something. He stood up, turned back to the cases. All it ever did was make the next fight worse. Silence filled the room. Wade shifted his weight. So what? You're just gonna leave it? Caleb looked at the stacks again, then the maps, then at the walls. Every piece of it tied to something bigger than just money. To decisions, to consequences, to people. Including one name he hadn't said out loud yet. He shook his head. No. Wade leaned forward slightly. Then what? Caleb reached into his jacket, pulled the file out, held it for a second, then placed it on the table. Flat. Final. I'm not taking it, he said. Wade blinked. What? Caleb met his eyes. I'm not selling it, not hiding it, not cashing out. Wade stared at him like he'd just said something insane. Then what the hell are you gonna do with it? Caleb didn't answer immediately. The dog shifted again, adjusting its position so its body faced the stairs more directly. Guarding. Even now. Caleb noticed. A small thing. But it mattered. He looked back at Wade. I'm gonna keep it right here. Wade let out a disbelieving laugh. You're kidding. Caleb shook his head. No. That's a fortune sitting in the ground, Caleb. I know. And you're just gonna sit on it? Caleb's expression didn't change. I'm gonna do something with it. Wade crossed his arms. Like what? Caleb glanced around the bunker one more time. At the space, at the structure, at the purpose it had once held. Then back at Wade. Make sure it doesn't get used the same way twice. Wade opened his mouth, then stopped. Because there was something in Caleb's face. Not anger, not confusion. Something quieter, something settled. The kind of look that didn't argue, didn't explain, just decided. Wade exhaled slowly. All right, he said. Then you better figure it out fast. Caleb nodded once. I will. Above them, the house creaked again, wind pushing through broken boards. Outside, something shifted in the distance. Maybe just branches, maybe not. The dog's ears lifted instantly, head turning toward the stairs, alert, ready. Caleb followed its gaze, then stepped toward the exit. Let's move, he said. Wade didn't argue this time. They headed up together, leaving the bunker behind. Not abandoned, not forgotten. Just waiting. This time, for something different. The wind moved through the trees again, slower now. Caleb stepped out onto the porch, boots settling into the warped wood like he'd been standing there for years instead of days. The light had shifted, late afternoon sliding into that quiet hour where everything softened. Behind him, the house no longer felt like something collapsing. It felt like something holding. Wade leaned against the railing, arms crossed, watching the tree line. You hear that? He asked. Caleb didn't answer. Because for the first time in a long time, there was nothing. No rotor wash, no static, no distant pop of gunfire buried in the back of his head. Just wind, just space, just quiet. The dog stepped out beside him, slower than before, favoring the bandaged paw but refusing to stay inside. It moved to the edge of the porch and sat, posture straight, eyes forward. Still watching. Still working. Caleb glanced down at it. You don't quit, do you? The dog didn't move, didn't blink, just stayed there. Present. Wade pushed off the railing. So what's the plan? He asked. Because word's gonna spread. Guys like that don't just walk away. Caleb nodded once. I know. And if they come back? Caleb looked out over the land. At the slope beyond the house. At the tree line where shadows were already starting to stretch. Then he spoke. They won't come back the same way. Wade raised an eyebrow. That's supposed to mean something. Caleb didn't explain. Didn't need to. He stepped off the porch and started walking. Not toward the road. Not away, around. He moved the perimeter of the property the way he used to clear ground. Slow, deliberate, reading everything. Footprints. Broken brush. Tire marks. The dog followed tight at his side, occasionally moving ahead, nose low, checking angles Caleb couldn't see from where he stood. Working together now. Without needing to think about it. Wade watched from the porch, then shook his head and muttered, Yeah, something different, all right. It started the next morning. Not with noise, not with a crowd, just one truck. Dust-covered. It rolled up slow and stopped near the edge of the property. Caleb was already outside. He'd been up before first light, sitting on the steps with a cup of black coffee gone cold in his hand. The dog was beside him. Always beside him. The truck door opened. A man stepped out. Late 40s, worn, carrying something heavier than just the drive out here. He didn't walk straight up. He stopped halfway, looked around, took in the house, the land. Then Caleb. You Walker? He asked. Caleb nodded once. The man hesitated, then said, Heard you might be letting guys stay. Veterans. Caleb didn't answer right away. He studied him. Posture. Hands, eyes. The way he stood slightly off balance, like his body still expected weight that wasn't there anymore. Caleb recognized it. Didn't need words. Finally, he nodded. Yeah, he said. The man let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. The dog stood, moved forward a few steps, then stopped, watching, not threatening, reading. Caleb stepped off the porch. Name, he asked. Eli. Caleb nodded. All right, Eli, you hungry? The man blinked, caught off guard. Yeah, he said after a second. Then come on. By the end of the week, there were 3 of them. Not a crowd, not a program. Just men who had nowhere else to go. They didn't talk much. Didn't need to. They worked. Fixed boards, cleared brush. Reinforced what could still stand. Wade showed up every morning without being asked. Brought tools. Didn't ask questions. Just built. The bunker stayed below. Untouched. Not hidden. Not used. Waiting. Caleb went down there once a day. Checked it. Not for the money, for the space, for the reason. And every time he came back up, he left something behind. Not physical, just distance. From the man he'd been when he first stepped onto that land. 2 weeks later, another truck came. Newer this time. Cleaner. It stopped at the same spot the last one had. But this time, Caleb didn't stay on the porch. He walked down to meet it. The dog moved ahead of him, then circled back, staying close. The door opened. A younger man stepped out. Late 30s, sharp, but tired in a way that didn't show on the surface. He looked at Caleb. Didn't speak right away. Then finally, Dad. Caleb didn't move, didn't react, just stood there. The space between them held everything they hadn't said for years. The dog stepped slightly forward, placing itself just off Caleb's side. Not aggressive, just there. The younger man noticed. His eyes dropped to the bandaged paw, then back up. "You staying here now?" he asked. Caleb nodded once. "Yeah." Silence again. The wind moved through the trees behind them. Same sound. Different meaning now. The younger man exhaled slowly. "I didn't know," he said. Caleb didn't ask what he meant. Didn't need to. He just said, "I know." The words landed simple, clean. Not forgiving, not accusing, just true. The younger man looked past him at the house, at the land, at the work already started, then back at Caleb. "You need help?" Caleb studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. "Yeah," he said. That was it. No speech, no explanation, just that. The younger man stepped forward. Slow, careful, like crossing into something he wasn't sure he was allowed to enter. The dog watched him the entire time. Then, after a second, stepped aside, let him pass. That night, Caleb sat on the porch again. Same spot, same view. But nothing felt the same. The house behind him held voices now. Low. Steady. Alive. The land didn't feel empty. It felt used, like it had finally been given a purpose it had been waiting for. The dog settled beside him, head resting against his boot. Caleb reached down, resting his hand on its neck. Warm. Solid. Real. He looked out over the darkening hills. The sky filled with stars, one by one like it always had. But this time, they didn't feel distant. They felt close, quiet, steady. And for the first time in years, there was no noise behind them. No echoes, no ghosts pressing forward, just wind, just night, just this place. The place that had waited. Not for the money, not for the secret, but for him. And maybe that's the part that stays with you. Not the money, not the hidden bunker, not even the truth buried all those years, but the fact that sometimes the thing you think you've lost for good can still find its way back to you. If you felt something in this story, even just a little, drop a 1 in the comments. If you believe people can still change, still rebuild, comment 0. And if you've ever had a moment in your life that felt like a second chance, just write again. Make sure you hit subscribe, because there are more stories like this coming. Stories that don't just stay on the screen, they stay with you.